it makes Chernobyl look like a joke. And Bob Bowman has now agreed this is as big as Chernobyl. It's going into, this is past that. You understand? Massive cover-up, Paul. They were storing spent plutonium, uranium fuel inside the overall containment facility over the sealed container over the active system. And it's all over the news. But it's hidden there, no one paying attention, no one understanding it. Took a guy that worked on nuclear submarines to call in and connect the dots. And this is horrible news, Watson, but we've got to warn people. So the issue is you can show that it's not just a fire at other areas getting into these, that if indeed they were storing the fuel rods, which you can find the news from memory. Again, I've read this all, but I'm telling you now, we're moving fast. Look it up, find it. They were storing rods, the evidence shows, inside, not the sealed container, not in the sealed area, which they're now saying several of them are breached, at least one, but not just a seal broken, ejecting in that huge mushroom cloud the last group or more of, because the news is saying some of them have repeated groupings, into the air, and one particle of that, it kills somebody. Watson, what do you say about this information?
There's an NPR story which basically says the same thing, called spent fuel rods now a concern at nuclear plant, and it has a graphic which shows them stored next to the actual reactor core.
Yeah, but to be specific, in the Mark I, it's not within the sealed final containment. They are sitting inside of the overall containment facility that blew sky high. That's what we've got to look into. Yes, we know that in some of the other plants, they caught on fire the spent fuel rods. Hold on one second. My wife keeps calling me. Hold on one second. Hey, honey, I'm still on air. I'll call you back, okay? All right, the situation is deteriorating. Okay, okay, there it is. They have a map of it. Is that from NPR? And there it is, spent fuel rods. Blow that up so I can read it, please. Thank you. Okay, it won't get any bigger than that. Are they saying that's the Mark I? We're not talking about number 4 that got on fire today. They're talking about, that's number 2 reactor that also blew up. And they're saying that spent fuel rods, there you go, they were able to blow it up. Okay. I usually can take breaks, folks, and get my wind back for here on air. But, Watson, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. You've got the floor. Give people the latest, you know, at Prison Planet InfoWars. And you talk for 5-10 minutes. I'm going to go do some research on this and nail it down. But you've got to ferret this out. The Mark I was storing them inside, not the main containment vessel, but above that. What do they call the larger dome? The main containment concrete system. It's stored inside that, not in the main containment vessel within it. So we've got to ferret this out. What Richard in Vermont was saying. Is Richard still on hold, or is he gone? We had to drop him. And I'm trying to think through all this right now. Paul, you got the floor. Give me a break, okay? Go ahead.
Well, the latest is that the ISIS, which is the Institute for Science and International Security, has basically said that the crisis is now closer to a level 6 event, which is obviously more serious than 3 Mile Island. And that, quote, it may unfortunately reach a level 7. So now the top US-based science and international security agency is basically admitting that. The 2 articles I wrote earlier today were about the shortage in potassium iodide. Basically, you've got private sellers on eBay selling a blister of potassium iodide tablets, 14 tablets in a pack, and that's it. Everywhere else is sold out. Amazon.com, if you try to purchase potassium iodide off Amazon.com, they're sending out an email saying that manufacturers have completely run out of supply. Indeed, on Saturday, before this even really got serious, they had already run out of supply, and they're not going to have any supply back in stock before April at the earliest, or even May. I am planning to visit China in a couple of weeks, which of course is not far from Japan. So I tried to buy some potassium iodide just in case. Obviously, you only take it in an emergency. You know, it's not some kind of supplement. It's not the liquid form, which is a lot weaker. You only take this in times of emergency. So I tried to buy some just for, you know, preparedness. Purchased it off eBay, and then lo and behold, I got an email about 3 hours later saying that they will not have any back in stock until the end of April or even May. So basically there's no supply for the whole of next month is what they're saying. Then of course you had the caller earlier in the show saying that he tried to get it through prescription, because we're also getting a lot of reports where chemists or health stores actually have small amounts of it in stock, but they're just refusing to sell it. One email said that a guy tried to buy it and he was told that it's used in the production of methamphetamine, so they just point blank refused to sell it to him. And then you had the case, of course, which you covered earlier, where this guy went to his doctor and she refused to prescribe it to him because after a conversation with the CDC, she was basically told not to, recommended not to, and so she followed their orders and refused to prescribe it. So panic buying has resulted in a massive shortage, and what's amazing about it is that it's been going on since Saturday, before they even admitted to the fact that any kind of radiation had been injected into the atmosphere. At that point, they were still claiming it was all hydrogen blast and that there was no real threat apart from the immediate vicinity. But after, of course, the reports that we covered of the jet stream potentially carrying this across the Pacific, people are trying to acquire this potassium iodide, and it's all basically run out. So good luck. Of course, you can still get the weaker liquid form of it, which is iodine, but it's far less concentrated than the pill format. The pill format is at 130 milligrams, and that's the amount that you need to take once a day to protect you from radiation fallout. But the liquid format is down at around 80 milligrams iodide. That's the strongest that you can get from my research, and I've been looking to buy it for hours today and managed to get some of the liquid, but the tablets are completely sold out. Apart from that, the latest developments are, of course, the radiation, they said, was an immediate threat. We had people fleeing Tokyo earlier today. Later, the government said that radiation had now fallen, but of course, since they've been caught underplaying the situation all along, nobody really trusts them. That's why a lot of people now start to leave Tokyo after the early reports of small levels of radiation reaching Tokyo. And basically, you've got evacuations taking place. You've got the French Radio France, which is the state radio station for France. They pulled basically all their staff from Japan over radiation fears. The Chinese government has started to set up flights to evacuate its people out of the affected areas. And so you've got a lot of people trying to leave as the crisis gets worse, which it only seems to have been doing. Every single morning in Japan, people wake up to this 6:30 announcement from the government, and it seems that each time they've made this announcement, the situation has got worse and worse. their methods for dealing with the nuclear crisis are taking on a more and more desperate tone. It went from injecting seawater in to try and cool these nuclear rods. Now they're failing to do that, and these rods are being exposed because of the water levels going down. They're talking about flying over helicopters to dump water on there to try and cool them down.
Paul, so going back to Friday and Saturday, our little debates, you know, I did a lot of research on this, and I have to say the reportage and our analysis has been absolutely dead on from the beginning of this, just because we know the history of other nuclear disasters and the cover-ups. We understand the technology, and I've got to commend you, Kurt Nemo, Steve Watson, your brother, Aaron Dykes, the entire crew here, Matt Ryan, Jaron Neihart, Marley Jones, Matt, Bill, Max, the entire crew, everybody in this office. And I tell you, if this continues to melt down the way it has, we're going to have big problems, not just in Japan, but in Hawaii, in northeastern Russia, Alaska. Those winds just gyrate and go all over the place, but mainly towards the U.S. And I was hoping and praying that they could get this under control. But, Paul, you understand the complete mission today and tomorrow now is the fact that that Mark I blew up, and that they're reporting that it had rods not in the super powerful internal chamber, but the larger blast shield containment over it, that it was inside of there. Some of the reactors tore it inside the inner chamber, others outside. The caller who worked on nuclear submarines was totally proven right yesterday. Today, he called in very credible and said he looked at the specs on a Mark I, and he reported to me that it's in the press. And I remember reading it. Again, I'm live on air, so it's hard. But to go in there, find out if they were storing it, because I saw it all over the news that some of these reactors, they were stored outside the inner containment facility. And so if that thing totally blew away, and then there was rods inside of there that weren't in the main containment facility but were in the outer one, those were ejected up into the air. We're dealing with something that makes Chernobyl look like a joke. I mean, this is off the charts. This is the #1 imperative. I need to let you go. What is your ETA on research on this? How long till we can get this key report out so we can get it on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com? Because obviously, Paul, because we know at other reactors at Fukushima, they were outside the facility as well, caught on fire, and the explosion blew up. We know that happened. But they were not ejected 3,000 feet in the air. I mean, you watch that plume in seconds go up, and you see the guts of what looks like a reactor and rods just falling back down. I mean, this is, folks, that one little grain of that plutonium or uranium in you, you're dead. You're not going to have to wait 10 years for it to kill you with cancer. And we're already facing Dr. Bob Bowman, 3 nuclear physicist degrees, the former head of Star Wars program, saying undoubtedly some radiation is going to hit the West. You're going to see increased cancers. But that was from the strontium, the cesium, the cesium, the radioactive iodines. That's bad, but nothing compared to uranium and plutonium. So what's your timeline on researching this? I'll help you ferret it out as soon as I get off air. But I'm telling you, I've read it over and over again that they were storing rods outside the inner containment facility. That's hidden in plain view. Separate from the other plants with them stored outside that just caught on fire. If that huge explosion happened and they were storing things inside the general containment area over the inner, that's the issue. If that happened, we know that this is worse than Chernobyl, and it's being covered up. And everything else has been covered up, Paul. Like when I called you Saturday morning and I said Fukushima 1 just blew up, I would doubt that the containment facility would be intact. And now they're admitting that, 1, 2, 3, maybe a bunch of them, the seals are broke, you know, of the impregnable. I saw Glenn Beck yesterday saying it was just impregnable, the inner one. And great, hope that all you want. I mean, the explosion we saw at Fukushima 3, and we don't know the explosions. Have you seen the explosions that went on during the night? Because I can't find video of that because it was dark. I mean, do we know how big those were?
Right, there's no one there. That's why they said they heard an explosion, because there's hardly anyone there to see it, because there's only 50 people left in the actual vicinity. But, I mean, I saw that Glenn Beck last